Hello, my name's Milbourne. I'm a guide at Durham Cathedral and have been here as a guide for 3 years. Today I'd like to talk to you about Prior Turgot, who was the second prior of the present cathedral. Turgot was born in 1048 before the Norman conquest, and he lived in Lincoln. He was a well-to-do man and well-educated man as well. After the Norman conquest, when he was in his early 20s, he thought to himself that there wouldn't be much for him to do in England because he was an educated man and he wasn't the kind of man that the Normans wanted. The Normans' idea was to get rid of the elite people in the country and the clergy and the aristocracy, and they didn't want anything to do with them if they were of Saxon birth and so on. And so he decided that he would leave. What really prompted his decision was when the Normans started the castle building in the middle of Lincoln. They decided they would build a castle there, and they destroyed several houses, in 237 I think it was in fact, and Turgot realised there that he wasn't going to succeed in any way. In fact, for a short while he was imprisoned as a hostage against any revolt because of the house demolition and so on in the town. He managed to escape, and he escaped to Norway, and he found himself at the court of King Olav III, and he was busy just beginning to build his cathedral. He stayed there for 6 years and became very, very much a favourite of King Olav, but he yearned to be home. He really, really wanted to come back to England, and word was coming to him that there was perhaps a chance that the church was mellowing down now and that he could find himself work there. He was a good singer, which was always in those days something to hang on to. He arrived in England rather bumpily. In short, he was shipwrecked on the shore and lost all of his belongings, including his money, and found his way to Durham, where he met Walter, the first Norman bishop, and Walter took a shine to him and sent him down to Bede's old monastery at Wearmouth, and there he learned his craft. Coming back to Durham during the early days of Bishop William. Bishop William of Calais also liked him, and he was busy preparing to build this magnificent building. He showed Turgot all the plans and ideas of what he wanted, and the problem that William had, he had the dream for this beautiful place, and he had the push, and he had the wherewithal to find the money or supply the money himself. But as a minister of the Crown, as well as being the Bishop of Durham, he was going to spend a lot of time away. And so he needed somebody on the site to help things run from the financial point of view. There were plenty of good builders and masons and so on who would organise the actual building, but the finance and the programming and the push to keep it going, he needed somebody on the ground who was from the clerical side of things, and Turgot was that man. The highlight of his career was when he got the cathedral as far as the crossing, and it was ready then to move Cuthbert's remains into the tomb. This was in 1104. By this time, William of Calais had died, and Bishop Flambard was in charge. When everything was ready to move the coffin, a great array of dignitaries were invited to this auspicious occasion, and they had decided then that they would open the coffin and have a look at the remains because of the legend that went around that he was incorrupt. Cuthbert was incorrupt. And so it was all decided. He was brought into the choir, and at the dead of night, by candlelight and so on, they opened the coffin, and Turgot gazed on the face of Cuthbert and confirmed that he was in fact incorrupt. He closed the coffin up again and prepared to move him into the tomb the following day. However, by the time daylight came, several of the dignitaries weren't happy that only Durham people were present. It was in Durham's interests to say that everything was all right, because obviously we depended on pilgrims, and pilgrims came to be near the incorrupt Cuthbert. So it was organised then that another opening would be carried out in the presence of an independent witness, a man called the Archbishop of Sees, and when it was opened he confirmed that that was the case, and so the funeral went ahead with all due ceremony. Sadly for Turgot, that was the swan song of his career, because Flambard, who I mentioned a few moments ago, the last thing on earth he wanted to have next to him was a prior who was almost as famous as he was at the time, with a forthright attitude and a way of really getting things together. And so when King Andrew of Scotland asked for a bishop, and he particularly asked for Turgot because Turgot had ties with his family, Flambard was only too keen to endorse this, and off Turgot went to be Bishop of St Andrews, a task he didn't really like. He found it very awkward. He was used to the disciplined ways of the Benedictines, and the Scotch Church wasn't like that at all. And so he really had a good go at it, but it wasn't right. Eventually, he felt that he was becoming ill, and he thought he's coming towards the end of his life, and he asked if he could come back to have Mass in Durham, which he was allowed to do. And he came to Durham, where he died, and he's buried in the chapter house today. If you come out to the cathedral and have a look around, it'd be nice to have a little thought for the Lincolnshire lad who really put this place on the map, as it were, in the beginning. He was present when they opened the ground in 1093 in July, and then in the August he laid the foundation stone in the presence of William of St Calais and Malcolm III of Scotland. So he really was quite a man, and we owe a lot to him. Thank you very much for watching.